And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us right now, our friend, former ambassador to the United Nations, you said, John Bolton. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, Steve. How are you? Thanks for having me back on.
It's always my pleasure. Thanks for making the time. Okay, so first report is that Iran announces that they're going to build 34 new nuclear sites, working with Russia to boost their nuclear program. Then comes word that Iran may be a month from a bomb, according to the Institute for Science and International Security. At the same time, the administration's meeting with Senate and congressional leaders not to tighten the sanctions on Iran. It's almost like fantasy land.
Well, I think it shows that Iran believes it has the stronger hand, and it's acting on that belief. You know, the Russians have been eager for over 10 years to build more nuclear reactors for Iran, and why not? The reactors would cost between $1 and $2 billion. It's good work for Russian nuclear physicists and technicians, and it makes a lot of sense for Iran. It gives them more reactors that they can use to reprocess spent fuel to get plutonium to build nuclear weapons. And that report you mentioned, which puts the capability that Iran has to enrich the uranium it already has partially enriched to get it up to weapons-grade levels at a month and a half. Honestly, I've thought they've been at that point for a long time. You know, and that assumes, by the way, we have perfect knowledge of what Iran is doing, which we don't. There's a lot we don't know about Iran's program, and it's all bad news. But coming from an objective, nonpartisan source like ISIS, I think now it makes it inescapable to everybody but the most obtuse that Iran is continuing to make steady, sure progress toward a nuclear weapons capability, and that the Obama administration's notion that they can chit-chat Iran out of its weapons is fanciful.
Yeah, so you would obviously advise the Congress to move ahead with this bill, tightening the sanctions and not going along with the Obama administration.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, even former Secretary Colin Powell, when he was in office in the first Bush administration, and who I disagreed with on Iran policy, once said to Foreign Secretary Jack Straw of the United Kingdom, referring to the Iranians, he said, "Jack, you've got to hold an axe over these guys' head. And if you don't hold the axe over the head, you have zero chance of making progress." I don't think you can make progress even with the axe, because they don't think the axe is ever going to fall. And I think for the Obama administration, that's certainly true. The president's never going to use force against the Iranian program, so they're not in a hurry. They're not in a hurry. The only fear they have is what Israel may or may not decide to do.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I know they're keeping a close eye. And what about the reports that do you believe that the U.S. is pressuring Israel? And if so, you know, what would they use as pressure? We're going to cut off your aid? We won't cooperate with you? I mean, what could they do to leverage Israel that way?
Well, what I've been worried about for a long time is that the administration fears an Israeli preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear weapons program more than they fear an Iranian nuclear weapon. I think although the administration denies this, they say they don't believe in containment. They say they don't want Iran to get nuclear weapons. I think, honestly, deep down, they believe that they can contain and deter a nuclear Iran. I think that's delusional, but I think that's what people in the Obama administration think. So there's no doubt for the first 4.5 years, there was a lot of pressure on Israel, explicit and implicit, not to undertake any military action. And I think one of the most important reasons to the Obama White House why this latest round of negotiation with Iran is off and running is that is yet another argument against Israel taking military action.
We're talking to Ambassador John Bolton here on the Steve Malzberg Show. What's your take on what's going on with the revelation that the NSA monitored calls of 35 world leaders, including Ms. Merkel's cell phone, the European world up in arms? Now, isn't it commonplace that we would do this and assume that they're doing it to us? Is it just the revelation that gives them fuel to make us think about this?
Yeah.
And so where do you fit in on this?
Well, it doesn't bother me at all if we are listening to all of their cell phones. I mean, let's be clear here. It is the duty the duty of the President of the United States to take steps to protect America. And if that means conducting espionage even on friends, absolutely, as a matter of principle. Now, whether in fact we're actually doing anything like this is a very different question, and it goes to what I think is not being covered in the press here. These new revelations, which may or may not be true, all come from Edward Snowden. And those who said at the beginning that he was a kind of whistleblower, this is the proof that Edward Snowden is a traitor. This release of information is intended to harm U.S. relations with its allies. It's intended to have us cut back our espionage activities. This is all clear anti-American activity. And I think people need to understand that. That's the real aim of all of these leaks that we're seeing now. You know, the fact is, as a matter of political prudence or as a matter of resource allocations, would you rather spy on Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, or 15 other people in China? I mean, I could argue the resource allocation point, but as a matter of general principle, we do what we need to do. Now, just make one other point. It could well be we were listening in on somebody else's phone who called Merkel, and that's how that fact of a Merkel conversation came into our possession. So there's a lot here I don't acknowledge just because Glenn Greenwald and The Guardian print it, or any newspaper for that matter, that it's true. That's what they say. I think there's a lot more here we don't know about. And I'll make my final point here, Steve. It distresses me that we're even talking about this.
Yep.
This is exact. I don't mean distressing that you've raised it, but distressing that our nation is so much at risk, that we have so many enemies so determined to cause us harm that they'll leak these most sensitive secrets to the press, knowing how much harm it will cause our country. It is a dangerous time.
Now, yeah, very, very true. You got time for another one, sir?
Sure.
Okay. You wrote a great piece at National Review, which talked about the Nobel Peace Prize being given to OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, for good intentions. They've accomplished nothing but good intentions, and it takes me back, I guess, to Barack Obama as well. He didn't do anything. He barely sat down in the Oval Office, and they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize.
You know, the Nobel Peace Prize may be the most prestigious award in the whole world, and it's a tragedy because the pursuit of peace is something we all want, but we want peace with security. We want to see real peace, not fake peace. And the Nobel Peace Prize Committee over the years has made some of the silliest decisions about who gets the award, and in this case, it's an award made because they're fascinated with international organizations. They've given it to many other elements of the UN system, and it's really sad that this legacy of Alfred Nobel, who understood the power of war and the risks that we all face, that it gets frittered away with prizes like this.
And finally, on 60 Minutes this Sunday, Lara Logan talked to a British citizen who helped train Libyan guards at the embassy in Benghazi, and the State Department would not allow those guards to carry weapons. That's number one. He talked about how he was on the phone with someone involved in the attack, in the middle of the attack, one of his guards, and they said, we're going to pistol whip you, we're going to make it look good, we don't want to kill Libyans, we're here to kill Americans. Anything there surprise you, especially including the fact that those guards, quote unquote, couldn't carry weapons?
No, and I think this is another demonstration. There is so much more to come out about Benghazi, not only what happened on September the 11th, but the utter lack of preparations, the idea that we were living in our people were living in a safe country, that there was no threat from al-Qaeda and terrorism, and what happened after the attack, still a lot to be revealed. So I give great credit to Lara Logan for bringing this story forward. I give great credit to the people at Fox, to Catherine Herridge, Jennifer Griffin, who for a year were reporting on this, carrying this story almost alone. There's much more here. I think the American people understand this really is a real scandal. This is not one of Obama's phony scandals. It goes to the very essence of the problems of Obama's foreign policy, and we should not let it die until we have all the facts. Newsmax.
Absolutely. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us today, Ben. Thanks for your time.
Thanks again, Steve.
My pleasure. That's I don't want to say congressman. That's former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Yeah, incredible. Just incredible stuff that this British citizen who calls himself Morgan Jones is saying to Lara Logan. We'll definitely let you hear more of that as the show progresses. 877 Newsmax, 877-639-7629. We are a mess domestically. We are a mess with foreign policy. 39-7629. We are a mess domestically. We are a mess with foreign policy built, and the president is dying to shake the bloodstained hand of the new president of Iran and put Israel at risk, put the West at risk, put us at risk. Doesn't faze him. That's what he's all about. Yeah, on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.